Welcome to the TechEd Code House. It's a house like no other. A secluded area with no phones, no search engines, and no communication with anyone in the outside world. 9 developers from around the world moved in search of 10 solutions to improve developers' lives. 4 cameras and 12 microphones capture their every move and every mood.
Okay, could you show me camera B? Hello, I'm Amiki, and welcome to the TechEd Code House. Today's an exciting day for software development. We brought together 9 of SAP's brightest developers living together 24 hours a day. But they all have to come together for one unique mission: to improve developers' lives by introducing new tools and techniques. Not just to each other, but to you, the audience. Behind me, you can see one of the most sophisticated control rooms in this part of the world. From here, we're capturing every move made by our 9 developers. But will they reach expectations, or will they fail? In the next hour, we'll see how well they get along while living together around the clock. And more importantly, what ideas will they be showcasing? From ABAP to iOS, these developers will cover a lot of different topics. But before we check in with the house, let's meet the housemates. DJ, the professor. Josh, the attention seeker. Kevin, the passionate one. Katharina, the stoic warrior. Marius, the quiet one. Michelle, the lazy developer. Rich, Mr. Short Fused. Thomas, the people pleaser. Ritelli, the caffeinated data geek. These are the talented people who are aiming to change software development forever. They've been living together for the past 7 days. Let's check in on their demos and find out exactly how they've been getting along.
Day 7 in the Code House. After another hard day of working on their ideas, the developer housemates are relaxing and mentally going over the final details before presenting their demos in the demo room.
Well, I guess it's me making dinner for everyone tonight. Again?
DJ, please come to the demo room to present your demo.
Oh, okay. Let's go. So, I've got to start making dinner soon, but there's a few more things I've got to do. One of those things is to create a Cloud Foundry-based messaging service based upon SAP Event Mesh in a separate self-contained sub-account on SAP's business technology platform. Now, I'm not going to use a fancy GUI for that because that would only slow me down. I'm going to use the BTP CLI, the command line interface. It's super powerful, super scriptable, and so easy to use. So I'm going to start out by having a look at what I've got. I've got a brand new global trial account with its normal sub-account in there. I'm checking that in the hierarchy mode. I want to just check that I've got some messaging entitlement. And there I can see, I'm looking for that, and I can see I've got the dev plan for the enterprise messaging service assigned to the trial account, which has got a GUID that I can find out with the BGU script, which itself uses the BTP CLI. It's so reusable, it's awesome. So I'm going to use the BTP CLI to unassign the entitlement to that messaging service by setting the quota amount to 0. I'm going to specify the sub-account, the trial sub-account. Let's do that, and it's done. Okay, so there we go. Let's just check that now. I'm going to again use the BTP create to create a directory. Now I can ask for loads of help for anything I want to do with the BTP CLI. I've got help, and I can see there for creating directories, there's some things I need to specify. I can specify features, and I'll also need to specify a display name. So let's specify the display name first. The TechEd House, let's call it that. And of course I want all the features, the defaults, the entitlements, and the authorizations. I'm going to check now, the TechEd House is there in the hierarchy, so why not? I'm going to assign or reassign that quota to the messaging service to that directory. And it's as simple as that to do. Now, let's just check that to see that the entitlement is assigned to the right place. So I'm going to list the entitlements. look for the TechEd House identity, and there is the dev plan for the enterprise messaging service assigned. Brilliant. Okay, I want to create a sub-account. Where can I create that? What regions? Well, all those 3 regions support Cloud Foundry. I'm going to choose US 10, because why not? Now, there's a few more things I need to specify to create a sub-account. I need a display name. Of course, I'm going to want to say yes, please, to the beta features. I never know what to put for the subdomain. I'm going to generate myself a GUID with that little script there, but I want the sub-account to be in that TechEd House directory. So let's hit that, and it's done. Let's just check the hierarchy now to see that the sub-account is there. It's in there inside the TechEd House directory. I'm going to assign now the quota to the messaging directly to that new messaging sub-account now, just like we did before. Brilliant. Now I want to set that messaging sub-account as the target for all future commands in BTP. So now I can say, show me the available environments in this sub-account. There it is, Cloud Foundry. Let's create an instance of the Cloud Foundry environment. Again, using the BTP CLI, autocomplete is awesome. I can see I can use the environment option to specify the Cloud Foundry sub-account along with the service and also the plan options. And there's also a little bit of JSON I'm going to need to specify to pass along so I can give a name to this Cloud Foundry instance. I'm going to call the instance, let's call it TechEd CF or TechEd House CF. That's even better. So let's set that creation going, the creation of the Cloud Foundry instance, and it's off. Let's just check to see if it's there now. I'm going to list the environment instances inside this sub-account, and there it is, all its glory. Now, the BTP CLI, just like any CLI tool, is so fast, so powerful, so scriptable. You know the future is terminal. Now, what do I want for, we want for dinner?
Oh, getting ready for a dinner. Make sure it is better than last night.
Hey, you don't need to worry about dinner because you're needed right now in the demo room.
Okay. Now, the DJ is finally out of here. It's a demo time for me. So, in my demo, I bring data from an open dataset called Global Database of Events, Language and Tone, or GDALT for short, into my SAP HANA Cloud environment, where later I can combine this acquired dataset with enterprise data stored in SAP HANA database. GDALT is an open data platform that monitors the world's news media from nearly every corner of the globe, every moment of every day. It is used by many companies, organizations, and universities, and I want to use it in my enterprise data landscape too. GDALT files have an unknown business value for our project yet. I want to collect these files for my own exploratory data analysis, and I'm looking for an inexpensive way of doing that. That's why I have chosen SAP HANA Cloud Data Lake for my task. Data Lake gives developers web HDFS-compatible REST APIs for operations on files. For example, to list my file container's root directory, I use list status operation. It is an HTTP GET command that requires my file's REST API host in the URL. There is one must-have header parameter that defines which file container the request should target. I get it from the host name. Communications between clients like Curl and a data lake file container is secured using certificates. If everything is okay, then the JSON structured response is received, like a single directory in my case. The Data Lake Files CLI client is provided to make developers' life easier. Take that, DJ. I created an alias to the CLI client to avoid typing configuration again and again. CLI operation LSR is a recursive listing, and I can check how many files I've loaded. So there are more than 2,600 files in my data lake. Let's check how many of them are from today. I'm using year, months, day values in folder names to structure my data lake. Okay, 56 files from today. Now, let's move to SAP Data Intelligence Cloud, which provides out-of-the-box support for SAP HANA Cloud Data Lake files. Business users can see a folder structure and preview files in data lakes using Metadata Explorer. Okay, last 3 months of data is already loaded. As a data barista, I love SAP Data Intelligence, and I used it to build a data pipeline to load files into my data lake. By the way, you can see the use of data lake REST API in this Python operator to write the file. Let's move to Database Explorer now. To query data directly from these thousands of files, let's create a remote server to the file service. Okay, SQL on files appears in my data lake connection in DBX now. Cool. First, I am creating an SQL schema in the file service. Second, I'm creating a table with a data structure for collected files. Done. Third, I am creating a local data lake IQ table for a remote table in the file service. Next, I just point to the data lake folder with all files, which content I want to be visible in the table. Note how folder names are mapped into table columns to provide year, month, and day values. Last, let's query data with SQL directly from files now. That's a cream on top. It seems most positive news today were published by the Orlando Weekly. Wouldn't it be great to be in hot Florida in November, sipping some cold brew? Instead, I think it's time for another coffee. And let it be hot, please. Wait, where did all the coffee go?
You know, Vitaly, if you want to get coffee in this house, you're going to have to be a lot faster than that, because the only thing that I move fast for is caffeine. Because I hate wasting energy anywhere. I try to get rid of all of the administrative stuff that I have to do every day. One example of this would be in recent PRs. I keep getting comments asking me to make sure my files are formatted and the unit tests have run and they all pass. And it's so frustrating to have to remember to do that every single time. So what's that old adage? Why spend 2 seconds doing something when you can spend 2 hours automating it? Yeah, I did that. I implemented git commit hooks in the repo that I've been working in so that I don't have to remember to format my files or run my unit tests and make sure they pass. It just does it automatically. So just look at this. With just 3 dev dependencies, 2 of them being prettier and pretty quick, those 2 will handle the formatting of all of my files. And then I had to add the 2 files that I needed for it just because I hadn't had it set up in my repo. If you already do, all you need to do is add pretty quick. After that, the 3rd dev dependency is Husky, which will handle all of the commit hooks. And that was all I needed to do, and everything was set up. The last thing was to add just the hooks themselves. The 2 hooks that I have will be the formatter that will run on every commit and the unit tests that will run as well. And I'm done. It took literally 30 seconds and everything was set up. It was wonderful. And you can see here with this commit that I try to run it and my file gets formatted, which is wonderful. And then the commit will actually fail because the unit test failed. So I can't commit anymore if my unit tests aren't passing. All I need to do is see which unit test has failed, and then fix the unit test, commit again, and everything will work beautifully. It's wonderful. I don't have to worry about doing this anymore, and I save so much mental energy every day. And it doesn't just benefit me, it benefits everyone who uses the repo because it's in the repo itself. All you have to do is run the install and everything is set up. And you know what? I call that a win for lazy developers. You know, I don't think this coffee has hit yet. It might be decaf. I think it's time for a quick power nap before dinner.
Hey, so much for having my coffee.
Well, so much for my nap.
The SAP Fiori for iOS ARKit open source project lets me use a Swift package which can be used via the Swift Package Manager within my Xcode project, so I can access the APIs super easy and fast. Before I get started implementing my AR logic, I need to create a reality scene using the Reality Composer app provided by Apple. I've already prepared this, and you can see I've set an image as the AR anchor and placed 3 spheres around the image. These spheres will appear on the screen as little nodes where the user can display so-called AR cards by tapping on them. The cards are provided by the SAP Fiori for iOS ARKit package, and they follow the SAP Fiori for iOS design guidelines. Using the provided model protocol card item model, it is easy to create the needed struct providing a model to my AR cards. Now I want to define what the cards will look like. The provided API allows me to use a predefined card view, but for this project I want to create my own SwiftUI views. Fortunately, I can use the SwiftUI View Builder approach to define my card views super easy, as the SAP Fiori for iOS ARKit APIs support this approach. The content view is the perfect place to define the AR model, as well as the logic for providing the different card views depending on the user's request. This can be done in the body of the content view via the single image AR card view, and the distinction of the needed card by its ID. Through the constructor of the single image AR card view, it is possible to provide the AR model as well as the anchor image to the custom card views. On appearance of the view, I load the initial data. The initial data is the defined mock data, the anchor image, and most importantly, the loading strategy of the AR experience. The SAP Fiori for iOS ARKit provides me with different strategies depending on what I need. Because I'm using an RC project, I will instantiate the RC project strategy and provide the mock data, anchor image, and the file information to it. In the end, I simply tell the AR model to use my defined loading strategy, and the SAP Fiori for iOS ARKit does the rest for me. Scanning the anchor image in real life will cause the API to display the defined nodes as well as the corresponding cards in augmented reality. The SAP Fiori for iOS SDK ARKit API gives me interaction with the nodes out of the box and highlights the respective card automatically. Tapping on one of the cards opens up the SAP TechEd website. Of course, all sorts of different actions are possible to implement. Imagination is the limit. So well, now that I'm already awake, I guess it's time for a workout.
Oh, hey, Michelle. Did you want to use the treadmill?
Nah, cardio makes me angry.
Someone else can use the treadmill now. Thanks, bro.
Well, you know me. I had to get my 10K in today.
Now that you got your physical workout, it's time for your mental one. They need you in the demo room.
Great.
Can you believe Kevin? I've used the treadmill like 7 times since we've been here. Anyway, I can remember when programming was so much less complicated. You opened an editor, you wrote some code, and you activated it. That's it. That's all you needed to do to run your application. That's why I love ABAP, for its power and simplicity. SAP S/4HANA Cloud customers and partners need a way to extend SAP functionality in a cloud-ready way while continuing to keep the core clean. One way to achieve this is to employ a side-by-side scenario and leveraging the SAP BTP ABAP environment, also known as Steampunk. Now there's another way, with embedded Steampunk, which now allows developers to create custom code directly in the SAP S/4HANA Cloud system. Let's take the purchase requisition management application for example. I've already created a purchase requisition with a single line item, and I can freely change the order quantity to whatever I want. But what if I wanted to implement some custom code that would check the order quantity against some value in an SAP standard table, such as the Material Master Table MARC? Let's go to ABAP Development Tools. Here, I'm logged into an S/4HANA Cloud system, which includes embedded Steampunk. There are a large number of released objects available for me to use in my custom code from several S/4HANA modules. That's the key here. With embedded Steampunk, you must access the data with released APIs, such as CDS views. Business add-ins, or baddies, are also available for developers to implement at key enhancement spots within the main code line. In this case, I want to implement the check baddie for purchase requisition management. Let's jump directly to the baddie implementation class that I've already created. In the check method, I need to implement my own custom code to perform the check. But first, I need to get some data from the material master. I need to get the minimum lot size quantity so that I can compare that to the order quantity. I can't do a select against the mark table directly. This is not allowed in embedded Steampunk. I have to go through released objects such as the CDS view iProduct supply planning, which contains the minimum lot size field that I need. So here I do a select inner join between the importing table parameter of the check method, which contains the purchase requisition item data, and the iProduct supply planning CDS view on the material master. Then I loop through the result set and check the order quantity of each line item against the minimum lot size quantity in the material master. If the order quantity is less than the minimum lot size quantity, then I issue an error message for that line item. I'll go ahead and save and activate this baddie implementation. Now, if I return to the purchase requisition management application and change the order quantity, you can see that my check logic from my baddie implementation is being executed, and then I'm getting the error message that I issued in the if statement block. But that's not all. You can also debug your custom code in embedded Steampunk. I can set my breakpoint as usual, return to the application, and trigger the debug session. And now I can step through my custom code and check values as needed. So, as you can see, it's now really easy to implement custom code in your S/4HANA Cloud system, leveraging the embedded Steampunk functionality. Not only can you implement baddies, but you can also code full-blown business applications in S/4HANA Cloud. Not with classic ABAP, but in an upgrade-stable, cloud-ready way, and leveraging the ABAP RESTful application programming model. So I guess it's time for me to head to the showers before dinner, so I hope there's some clean towels since no one seems to know how to do any laundry around here.
Looking good, Josh. Looking good. What do you think?
So I guess there's gonna be blue hair dye everywhere?
You're just jealous because you can't pull this off.
Whatever you say, Josh. You're wanted in the demo room.
Good. Now I can impress them with my demo and my beard.
Come on, Josh.
All the other housemates hate me because I am so beautiful. But what are you gonna do? So for my demo, I'm gonna be working in the SAP Business Technology Platform. I'm gonna show you a couple things: how to change the SAP eventing to use SAP Event Mesh, and how to add in SAP CI/CD. Now, the Kyma dashboard that I'm gonna use is running in my already established Kyma environment. I already added all the enablement for everything from Cloud Foundry to Kyma before I set this up. But now that I go into my namespace, I'm going to want to work in a new namespace called TechEd Josh. I search for that just to make sure it's not available already, and it doesn't come up, so I click Add New Namespace. After that, I type the name TechEd Josh, and I click Create. Once that's done, I can go in and see that I've got my resources are available. There's nothing running yet, but we're going to add some stuff from the Service Management Catalog. So let's jump over to the catalog and let's search for Event. Once we do that, we'll see Event Mesh pop up, and I click on that tile, and I'll be able to then add Event Mesh into my SAP Kyma namespace. So, looking down here, I can see that I've got some code that I put into my text editor earlier. It came from a help document. It lets me map out what I want to use in the parameters. So I click Add Parameters, and I paste that code. And now if you scroll up, you'll see that the namespace that I'm using is going to be referenced TechEd Josh. So I've got that established so that when we're using the eventing, we know that the eventing name as TechEd Josh for this namespace is going to work correctly. It lets me add that, and it starts provisioning it. What's cool about the Kyma console here, another thing that helps the life of developers be easier, is that we've got status provisioning in blue. It would come back with an error if there was an error, and it would change to red. And hopefully it's going to come back green, which means we did everything right, and it'll say running. So we give this a couple of seconds, and we let the webhooks do their job, and the console will automatically update and say running if I did everything right. So 3, 2, boom, got it running. Now I need to establish a secret handshake between my namespace and anything I'm going to be talking to in the outside world. To do that, I look at my secrets. I don't have a secret established yet in this instance that's going to tie back to my namespace. So I click on the credentials and click Create Credentials. I see Agitated Antonelli. It's a random name that pops up from Kyma. And now I take Agitated Antonelli as the secret that I want to edit. I find it in my list now. It is the first one available. And I click on Edit, and I scroll into the YAML file down to the metadata. Back in my text editor, I have a couple lines of code that's going to give me the actual space that I want to actually be manipulating. So if we look here at the labels in the Kyma project backend, I can copy and paste that code in, put it into this YAML file secret, which is applied to the Kyma space. And if I get my spacing correctly, I can hit save, it goes green, and now this secret is mapped to use SAP's Event Mesh. If I wanted to go back to using NATS, I would simply delete those last 2 lines of code I added. I don't have to delete everything else. And it's going to take that YAML file and say, if you don't see these 2 lines of code, use NATS instead of SAP Event Mesh, and vice versa. But that's not all we can do to help make a developer's life easy. Using Kyma, you can actually integrate an app developer's CI/CD into Kyma. Now, if I have a lot of apps and I want to deploy them and I want to maintain them using CI/CD, I have to stand up infrastructure, I have to go to another place to actually stand it up. In this case, Kyma is going to allow you, without any other infrastructure, to go and do build and deploy in Kubernetes. So we've got the variables that we need to do to create a job here. I'm just going to create a new one real quick. Let's call this one TechEd Josh, which is of course my favorite name for today. And once I click TechEd Josh and I'm in my repository of Josh Kyma, I can create this job. And once it's created, it's going to keep it for 7 days with 50 build items. So we've got the ability to manage how much people are putting into these different systems. Now it's up and running. I can see that I've got Josh Kyma and I've got TechEd Josh. The CI/CD is going to now allow me to go in and edit some variables. Different things are available from the Kubernetes version that you're running. You could be using different Docker files. You could be using Helm. And what version of Helm for your deploy tool. So all these things are available to make the lives of a developer easier.
What do you want to do?
Oof, that's a good move. Yeah. I'm gonna think about that for a minute. Sure.
Hey guys, what do you think of this stylish new beard? Pretty cool, right?
Josh, do you mind keeping it down? We are trying to concentrate.
Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt the chess grandmasters. But Thomas, you're needed in the demo room. And when you're done, would you mind sweeping up the bathroom floor? I don't know who could have left a mess of hair there.
Sure, no problem.
Oh no, somebody should have made more coffee by now.
Someone should have.
I can't believe I agreed to clean up Josh's hair. I need to learn how to say no. And now I'm doing 2 demos because I couldn't say no again. Oh well, here we go. The thing about the cloud application programming model that my housemates just don't get is that they only know it as a tool to create services or model data. What they don't realize is that it has some great functionality to also make it easy to consume services and create service mashups and extensions too. So my task in the house this week was to extend a SuccessFactors Employee Central Personnel API with some new fields. And thanks to CAP, what might have taken me days of coding took only minutes. To begin, I go to the SAP API Business Hub, find the SuccessFactors API I need as my starting point, and download the EDMX specification file into a new empty CAP project. From the command line, I can use the CAP CLI to import the external service definition into my project. This converts the specification into CSON, or schema notation, and adjusts my project's package.json with technical configuration to connect to the service. It allows me to mock the service locally while I develop with data from a CSV file. Like most of the APIs you are going to find, this one contains a lot of fields. Overall, these APIs have to cover every usage situation. But CAP has this cool mechanism to extend a service and then mash up an existing entity. I'm going to take this entity from the external service and cut it down to just 5 fields. And in doing so, also change the name of those fields. We can then expose this remote service as our own with the reduced fields and even add a new middle name field that will persist separately as part of our extension. Because this is a mashup of external and extended services, the generic service framework can't just serve it out. With CAP extension handlers and the embedded SAP Cloud SDK, we can make all that happen in just a few lines of code. When someone requests our new mashup extended service, it first will forward that request to the SuccessFactors API. CAP will then take care of the translation between OData v2 and v4, the renamed columns. It even makes calling the service as easy as writing a select statement and forwarding all the original request query parameters right into the remote service. Then, after we have all the remote data we need, we can use a nice parallel operation to look up the locally persisted middle name data to enhance the service. To the applications calling our extended service, they never know that we forwarded their request to a remote SuccessFactors system, or that it's actually OData v2 based, or that we reduced the service, renamed the columns, or added some of our own extended data to it. All they see is the final service with all the data they want and needed in one place. As the development manager of this motley crew, and a developer myself, I'm constantly tasked with trying to figure out how to increase the amount of new apps and enhancements we can deliver to the business. They constantly want more functionality than our team alone can deliver. This is where the trends with low and no-code development have caught my attention. I'm obviously looking for anything that improves the developer productivity of my team, but also for ways to allow the business to build some of the content themselves. And while some of these tools certainly look accessible, I need to make sure I'm not unleashing developers that won't be integrated into our environment or our standards well. And this is why I got so excited by the new low and no-code offerings from SAP. I'm going to start here in the new application development lobby of the SAP Business Technology Platform. I like that all my projects can be viewed in one location, regardless if they were created in the SAP Business Application Studio or in AppGyver. In fact, what my team has done is started with the Cloud Application Programming Model application from earlier that extends the SuccessFactors service. That was originally coded by one of the pro developers in my team via the SAP Business Application Studio with a full stack development experience. They can directly code in the underlying JavaScript or Java of the Cloud Application Programming Model. And they have access to lots of expert tooling and debugging, including command line interface via the embedded terminal. But this is where we start to grow the possibilities of who can work with us on this project. Going back to the application development lobby, we can open this exact same CAP project in the new low-code version of the Business Application Studio. It has a simplified interface with a graphical storyboard and guided editors. So someone who understands the data model, but not necessarily Java or JavaScript, could extend and finish the work that our development team already began. They can even preview and deploy the application without ever having to deal with the technical complexities like package.json or MTA YAML files. But now that we have our service deployed, we want to develop a mobile UI. This is where AppGyver can be doubly helpful. There's many a back-end application developer that has little to no experience with front-end or especially mobile development. But AppGyver is such a simple tool that both professional developers with little front-end experience and business experts could both build flexible UIs. We start by importing the OData service endpoint, which we deployed from the low-code Business Application Studio. We can then drag and drop to design our UI and bind the controls with the dataset returned from the OData service. In minutes, we have a mobile-enabled application consuming our CAP service previewed in the web browser or directly on a mobile device. Needless to say, I'm excited by the possibilities here. We started the project within our development team and built the more complex part of the service consumption logic in JavaScript. Then a business domain expert was able to finish the data model definition using low-code tooling. Finally, a team member that had zero experience with mobile development was able to build out an iOS and Android UI in just a few hours.
Hey, I'm going to clean up that blue mess before we have dinner, but then you want to finish this game of chess?
I can't take any more of Josh's loud mouth. Ich brauche einfach meine Ruhe.
Finally, some peace and quiet. Josh just talks way too much. Anyway, the SAP Cloud Application Programming Model helps you build powerful OData services that can extend existing SAP services. But no backend developer seems to understand that even the best API is nothing without an easy-to-use UI. And this is why my demo shows you how to build delightful UI that establishes best practices that business users already know from other apps. And with the help of the flexible programming model for SAP Fiori Elements apps, I can do this in no time. The first thing we gotta do is to start a development server with CDS Watch and to see the metadata file that contains all annotations. We see some Fiori related annotations in here that we can use with the SAP Fiori Tools application generator to create a new list report object page based on this CUP service. So we go through all the steps of the wizard. For example, we define a module name. Here we choose personal LR for list report and all the other steps. And once we hit finish, the application generator will generate all the files we need in this project. Then we can open the web application and see our list report with no data yet. Next thing is we open the page map to edit the property of the list report table to initially load all data. This can be easily done, and once we change the property, the web server will reload, the web application will reload, and there we see our data. But we can do more cool things in the page map. For example, we can add a new section to the object page. There is another wizard that asks us for the section name, the section title that we can directly push to the i18n file, and also a fragment ID that defines the section. And we can jump directly to the code of this newly generated fragment. We see there is a text control and a button and a JavaScript file that contains the callback function that is triggered when the button is pressed. In this callback, we can import the message toast library and trigger a short message to greet everyone at TechEd once the button is pressed. Then we save the file, the application will reload, and we can hit the button to see our message toast in action. Awesome. Let's add another fragment and another JavaScript file via drag and drop to this project. You'll see that the fragment contains a text control that uses a custom formatter, and this custom formatter is defined in the JavaScript code, and it translates the nationality code to an emoji. You might have noticed that the nationality field is not yet part of our CUP service. So we change this in the CDS file and make sure the field is now available. So we see it in the payload here, that's great. And now we can switch to the manifest.json file of the web application and add a new column to our list report that is based on this fragment or template. And we also say it's based on the nationality field. We save the file, navigate back to the list report, and there we see our new column. Awesome. And with just these few additions to a standard floor plan, we built a beautiful UI for our business users with little to no effort. Or have you ever built such a powerful web application in less than 4 minutes?
Hey, Katharina, have you seen that loud guy with the blue beard?
No, I haven't.
Okay, good. I'll go and set the table up for dinner. Also, it's time for you to head to the demo room. You are the final one to present today. Nervous?
Come on, why should I be nervous?
I don't know what Maro's problem is with Josh. He didn't know that he was coming into a house with 8 other developers. When talking to my teammates the other day, some of them mentioned that they're annoyed of the manual and repetitive tasks they have to do every day and would like to optimize those by using AI. But they do not know where to start since they're not a data scientist. Thereby, it's pretty simple to get started with, also as a developer. So let me show you that your first AI call is just around the corner and you can get it for free. In the Discovery Center, you get an overview of SAP AI technologies offered via the Business Technology Platform. There you find the AI business services, which are reusable and support you in automating corporate processes. They address common needs like to classify data records or customer service requests, or to automate your document information extraction processes. And if you want to build your own chatbot, then conversational AI is the choice for you. And with the newly released AI Core, you can handle the execution and operation of your AI assets in a standardized and scalable way. For the demo, I'll use the Business Entity Recognition service. It detects and highlights entities from text, such as an email. And besides training your custom model with your own data, it also comes along with pre-trained models which give us a quick start to machine learning models very easily. Well, to set up the service, I go to my global account in BTP and use the booster to speed up the time of setting up the service. And since I first simply want to test the service without having any additional costs, I'll make use of the free tier option that BER supports and allows us to upgrade to a paid plan very easy too. And therefore, I'm choosing here the free instead of the standard plan. And once the setup is done, we have to make sure to download the service key, which we need now to communicate with the service. Now, since the service is up and running, we can finally start with the fun part and program our first AI inference call. Therefore, I'm using the Python Client SDK provided by the BER service that you can get from pypy.org. And by the way, we also offer this for the other AI capabilities mentioned before. Next, we get the service key that we downloaded previously and that we now need in the next step. Well, and to interact with the BER REST API, you need to first instantiate a BER API client object. The object needs few details such as the authentication URL, which we retrieve from the service key. And to post our first inference job, we use the pre-trained model, SAP Email Business Entity. This extracts the invoice reference number and the vendor ID from a text. And this is here the text we would like to get, or where we would like to get the invoice reference number extracted. And the text, the model name, and the model version we pass as an input into the post-inference job, and then post the inference job that will predict the inference number for us. Well, and besides the detail around the status of the job and which model were used, the response also contains the inference job ID. And this is what we need now to get the inference result. That's why we store the ID into a variable and then pass it into the method getInferenceJob that returns now the inference result for us. And the response now returns the prediction of the extracted entities. And here you can see that it extracted our invoice reference number 456789 with a confidence of 85%. And well, ta-da! You had your first day interaction with AI. And see, it wasn't so hard to get started with. And this is just the start. So to get more hands-on experience about the other AI technologies, I can only recommend you to explore the SAP tutorials and start your AI journey right away.
Okay, now it's time for coffee. This is unbelievable.
And that's it. 9 housemates, 10 fantastic demos. But before we go, let's recap. DJ showed us the power of the command line and specifically the BTP CLI. Vitaly queried data using SQL on files capability of SAP HANA Cloud Data Lake. Michelle showed us Git command hooks to automate tasks. Kevin showed us the power of the AR using the SAP BTP SDK for iOS. Rich showed us extensibility with embedded steampunk with S/4HANA Cloud. Josh showed us 2 demos using SAP Kima for eventing with SAP Mesh and then adding SAP Continuous Integration and Delivery. Thomas showed service consumption from CAP and then SAP's new low-code, no-code solution through the Business Application Studio and AppGyver. Marius used the SAP Fiori tools to build an enterprise-ready web app in less than 4 minutes. Katharina showed us that your first AI experience is just around the corner for free. So, what a week it's been. When the developers entered the TechEd Codehouse, it was with a unique vision to create the 10 ideas that would improve developers' lives. And they achieved exactly that. And what's even more impressive, they managed not to fight each other. Thank you so much for joining us at the TechEd Codehouse. And thank you to all the incredible developer housemates. Until next time, goodbye.